I think.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thanks. All righty. The hour is now 7:31 p.m. on Tuesday, April 6th. I would like to now call to order tonight's study session for the board meeting, 1st of April. Roll call, please, Ruth Ann.
Member Carter will be joining us later. Member Demmett?
Here, but it's not the 1st of April, it's the 6th of April.
Did I say first? April
Yeah.
Fools. It's April
Yeah.
6th, everybody. Thank you, John.
And Member Patton?
Here.
And Member Plosky?
Here.
Member Fisher is here. Vice President Exum will be joining us later, and President Hall.
Here. Do we have any additions, corrections, or modifications of tonight's agenda?
Nope.
Seeing none. Citizen statements. Last we heard, we had none, but
I'm gonna look again.
just going to take a quick look, and I'll just send a shout out. I think it looks like people who are in the building, anybody who's in the central office right now, it looks like you've got yourselves muted, but since there's so many of us actually in here, it's helpful to keep the echo down if we remember to mute after we're done speaking. I myself do it a lot and don't realize it. Okay, I don't believe we have any written citizen statements. For anybody in the viewing audience who's wondering why we're sitting here, we're just double checking at the front doors to see if anybody's arrived for public comment. It doesn't look like we have any. Okay. So there are no citizen statements for tonight's meeting, but there is a call for an executive session after tonight's current meeting for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. For the litigation, when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular district has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the district finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the closed meeting minutes. And for the purchase or lease of real property for the use of the district, including meetings held for the purpose of discussing whether a particular parcel should be acquired after the current meeting. So with that said, I need approval of tonight's agenda. Do I roll call? Nope.
So
Sorry.
moved. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Now roll call, please.
Member Demmett?
Yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Plosky?
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes, and President Hall.
Yes, the agenda is passed. And before we continue, I'd just like to say thank you to Bree at UPTV, who is hosting our meeting online for all of you folks at home who are watching. Okay, we'll start with our first administrative report for tonight, which is 7.1 on the agenda, is about summer extended learning opportunities, and Kim Norton and Linda Gibbons will both be presenting.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, could you enable screen sharing, please?
You're good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have been given a wonderful opportunity that we normally don't have. With our ESSER funds, we have the ability to offer extended learning this summer at all sites. And so we're really excited about that. Our administrators have worked with teams, met often, and are being really creative because we really want to entice students to attend, and they're trying some different approaches. In fact, for our elementary, and Mrs. Gibbons is going to elaborate on that more. She's been an essential part of this as she's been coordinating with our administrators. But for elementary, we're really marketing this as summer camps. And so Mrs. Gibbons is going to elaborate further on that.
Hi, everyone. Linda Gibbons, Director of Grant-Based Programs for the district. And yes, I'm really happy to announce the lineup for the district summer programs. We are very excited that each of our schools will offer a summer program. Each school worked with a group, as Ms. Norton mentioned, a group of their staff to come up with a plan. The programs will be a blend of academic instruction and carried out in a really engaging and fun manner. So programs will consist of academics and enrichment opportunities. All programs will offer a meal, and we will have transportation available for those students who qualify. Teachers, specialists, support staff in each of our buildings are signing up to be a part of the programs, to work in the programs. And in schools where we have 21st Century Community Learning Centers grants, we will share grant resources. And what we've learned over the years about fun summer programs, we'll share that with the school. And this will mean that those schools with grants will extend their programs into the afternoon. So we will have some full day programs at 3 of our schools. So many of the programs will also they're making arrangements with community partners and experts to come in and join in with the fun. The Park District, for one example, will be here this summer. So the programs will range from Monday through Thursday. They're going to go Monday through Thursday, all of them, except for our Camp Invention program. That will be Monday through Friday. So I'm going to go over these quickly. This is a lot of information, but you're going to be hearing more about it. And Ms. Norton has provided us with a list of times and dates. So early childhood will have 4 sessions this summer. They're going to go from 9 in the morning until 11:30. Each week they'll have a different fun and engaging theme to their camp-like programs. King School will have 2 sessions. They're going to go June 7th until July 1st, starting at 8:10 in the morning until 3:30 every afternoon. Their themes will be safari and camping. They'll have their second session July 26th until August 5th, and that will be a half-day program right before the school year starts for 2021-22. Dr. Williams will have a full day program June 14th until July 1st, 8:30 to 3. Both King and Dr. Williams are both 21st Century grant sites, so that's why they're going to have extra time. And Leal too is a 21st Century site. Their program will go June 14th until July 1st, 8:30 until 3:30, and their theme this summer will be Leal Around the World. Yankee Ridge will have a half-day program June 7th until July 1st, 8 until 12, and each week they're going to have a different theme. They'll have a carnival theme, a sports adventure camp, living green, and beach paradise. Thomas Paine will have 2 different sessions, June 14th until the 25th. That will be a 9 to 3 program. And they'll also have July 26th until August 5th. And that will be a 9 to 3 program. And their theme this summer will be creating a brighter future. Wiley will be doing a Jumpstart program July 26th until August 12th. And that will be a half day, 8:30 to 12 program. The middle school is going to be doing 2 sessions this summer, June 7th through the 24th and June 28th until July 15th. There will be a morning session, which will be focused primarily on academics, and the afternoon sessions will be more based on enrichment activities. We are also planning a summer transition program at the middle school for incoming 6th graders, and that will be July 26th until August 5th, and that will be a full day program, 9 to 3. Urbana High School is doing 2 sessions of summer school, which is the way they usually do their programs, and that will go June 7th and will end July 15th. That will be 2 sessions, and that will be an 8 to 1 program. And finally, we will have Urbana School District 116 Camp Invention. And this is an all-district program. It will be for elementary students. They can sign up for it, and it will be July 12th until the 16th, and it is a 9 to 3 program. It will be held at Leal Elementary, but all students in the district are invited, and it is a STEM program. So parents should look for information to come home. It may come home in the form of flyers, through a Sky Alert, through the child's teacher, or remotely. So if a parent hasn't seen information yet, it will be coming within the next few weeks. So please sign up. I think it's going to be really fun. Everybody's excited about this summer. And if you have any additional questions, please call your school office. And just big thanks to all of those staff who have been involved in planning. It's going to be a great summer for children in Urbana School District. Thank you.
And thank you, Mrs. Gibbons. Next, we will go over, I want to share some updates with our in-person enrollment numbers. But first, did anybody have any questions before I just go on?
Could I just ask, is there a capacity, a limit for all of these programs? And if so, how generous or not is it? I mean, how quickly are they apt to fill up?
We're going to be, principals are getting that information out within this next week. And so really, we don't have a limit at it at this point. We just want to get as many students as we can, but we will monitor that along the way.
So I think, Peggy, that the only limits that we are concerned about are the social distancing limits, as long as we're able to stay under our capacity limits on site, depending on if we're in phase 4, if we're in bridge, if we're in phase 5. I think those will be our only parameters, right, Kim? I mean, if just like we're doing with the elementary students right now, the ones that want to come back, we're accommodating them. So
yeah, we haven't had to turn anyone away at this point from students that are coming in person.
And I will say last summer we did remote summer programming in all of our 21st century schools and also through summer transition. So, if we have to go that direction, we have done it before, but in prior years we have always been in person, and we've had good numbers for summer.
Thank you.
You mentioned, I have a question quickly. You mentioned that we would have UMS transition. Is there going to be a UHS transition for incoming 9th graders?
We are working on that. I didn't want to give any specific information because it's in the plans right now. So what I'm hoping for is 9th and 10th for sure, and possibly all 4 grade levels. It will be more short-term than in the past, though.
Great, thank you.
and Joe messaged in the chat to Linda when you were talking about the UMS summer plan. He said there's also an academic component. It's not just remedial. He just wanted to make sure that was mentioned. Dr. Wemel shared that.
And so I wanted to know, is there going to be fairly extensive outreach to students for whom remote learning has not worked?
We've encouraged our principals, and that's why, to market this all different ways with videos. We know that has a lot of results. Personal contacts, mailings home. We want to make every attempt definitely to get our students in person, and so that we can get them the support that they need.
So are some of our student engagement staff getting involved in this?
They will be, yes.
I'm assuming this is a lead-in to try to get as many people as we can ready to start school in September.
Yes.
Late August, I guess it should be late August.
I mean, I feel like this is a really great opportunity for us to come back and practice, safe, being in the building safely. So yes.
Okay. And John, part of, I think what is teaching staff, we need to make sure that, if we could, we'd probably open the whole summer. But we do have some parameters around staff and being able to staff the programs. So that's why we're kind of taking a little bit of a break in the month of July. We have to allow ESS to get in and clean the buildings too. So a lot of the cleaning will happen in July. And then we'll open back up in August for those jumpstart programs to kind of hit the ground running again right before school starts.
And I just wanted to say thank you for bringing the camp invention to the whole district. I don't know if that's a special grant that you got. I know that they've offered it at Unit 4 for many summers in the past, and it's been really enriching for the kids over there who do it. So it's really exciting you're able to bring it not just to one school, but for the whole district can take part in it. Thank you very much for organizing that.
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to say that was Adriana Ochoa. Mm-hmm. She has done the Camp Invention program for the last 2 summers. We're really looking forward to it. And I will say that we did use Camp Invention during the school year too in our after-school programs as a STEM activity. So yeah, it's going to be really fun.
That's great. I know it's really intensive. I mean, one of my kids worked it for a few summers when in high school, and it was a lot of work, but the kids really looked forward to going, at least the ones who were in that camp that just got so excited every day they got to go. So I'm glad that we can offer it to our students here. Thank you.
And Linda, didn't it used to be a King for a short period, maybe for a year or two?
Well, we were talking about that this afternoon. Yes, it was at King, and it was there for actually, I think, a couple of years.
Okay.
And then it went to Leal. And it may have been even at Dr. Williams for one summer. So we've had it for quite a while now.
Mhm.
And the other thing, all cost barriers will be eliminated so that no family has to bear any cost. I hear that you're providing transportation even, so will that be bus routes and things like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is what it means.
All
We're
right.
able to cover all of that with our ESSER funding. We're going to talk about that, and I'm going to give a little update about that in my superintendent report, but
Well, that's what I assumed. I hope that's part of the marketing, that all of this is free of charge.
Yes. I saw Yankee Ridge's flyer this afternoon, and it says free of charge all over it. So I will say bus transportation, we stick with our guidelines of you have to live 1.5 miles away from the school in order to qualify.
Understood.
and I believe we'll feed kids too, right, Carol? I mean, we will
We do,
also
breakfast.
provide food. Yeah.
Well, thank you both. If there's no other questions from other board members, thank you. I'm excited to hear more about this as we get closer to summer. So keep us posted.
Okay, we will move on to our in-person numbers. Okay, so we do have a bit of an increase from last time. Our principals have reached out to families. At Thomas Paine, we're at 98. At Leal, 114. Dr. Preston Williams, 115. Wiley, 66. Yankee Ridge, 121. King, 92. UECS, 99. UMS, 241. And UHS 77. I do want to emphasize, I know these are the actual numbers of students that were attending last week at a couple of our schools. They do have significantly more students that have signed up, have enrolled, but they haven't attended yet. I know Dr. Williams, Dr. Preston Williams, they're expecting more students. Wiley has about 30 more that they're expecting, but they haven't attended as of yet. The middle school has nearly doubled their numbers. They were about 137 previously. So we're really proud of them and their efforts. We see Thomas Paine's up about 20, Leal about 14. As I mentioned, DP and Wiley are getting additional, but they're up 5 or 6. Yankee Ridge is up 17, King 17, early childhood up about 22, and high school up about 10 students from where we were when I last reported.
So this is still running about a third of what we hope should have been the enrollment had there been no COVID.
We have, and again, we haven't turned anybody away, especially at the elementary. We would love to have any students. We have told our administrators, in fact, we have had some families every week, families that are making, asking to come back, and we gladly will take them.
And Kim, these are numbers for the fourth quarter, because don't people have to, didn't they have to commit, to whether they were coming or not? So these are our fourth quarter, as of that week. Okay.
Yeah, and they increased a little bit more just this last week, the week of the 29th, when we had this shorter week due to our professional development and Friday holiday. We did see an increase a little bit more this last week. And as I mentioned, are expecting more this week.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions about in-person learning? Okay. Thank you for that, Kim. Okay, moving on to 7.2 in our administrative reports. We have Dr. Harvey Tatum is going to talk about the plans for 21-22 school year.
Okay. And again, I want to reiterate as I'm getting my camera situated here so I can see everybody while I'm sharing. Everybody can see my share screen, correct? Okay. So yes, as you've seen in the plans, we are very committed to returning in person. This is not a comprehensive plan like the ones that you saw back in August with schedules and logistics and hallway patterns and how we're doing lunch. We still have quite a bit to figure out between now and our last board meeting in June 15th. But this is to let parents know and our community know that our full intention is to be back in school 5 days a week, full days. So we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and what metrics we're going to be using to make that happen. So our goals for today is we're going to talk about our in-person learning scenarios. I'm going to share the metrics. They've changed a little bit, but we've been sharing those health metrics with you all year from the state, from the county, and the CDC. We're going to share some of our lessons learned. We learned a lot this year about how we could do this differently and some success stories and then some challenges. So we'll talk about those. We're going to share a preliminary timeline for some key decisions that will happen over the summer and encourage our families to stay connected with us. I know what happens usually is once the school year ends, we have a hard time connecting with families. So we'll talk about that. And then what are the next steps in the planning process? Because we do still have quite a bit of planning left to do. So what are our goals and our guidelines for in-person learning? So number one, and this is our primary goal and our priority, is to make sure that we are providing safe learning for our students and our staff. A commitment to in-person learning, as I mentioned, 5 days a week, full day, as long as the health metrics allow us to do that safely. Ensuring that our students receive instruction that meets the standards, and that is our district standards, our state standards, our federal standards for all of our grants. And that includes the necessary supports like digital curriculum. We're going to be talking about that a little bit. Access to technology and connectivity, which was a challenge at the beginning of the year, but we have a really good system in place now. Social emotional wellness and health supports, additional supports to differentiate instruction and meet the needs of special populations. Continuing to provide support. I know Mrs. Smith is on here. She's going to talk later, but we are already planning our PD and our professional development opportunities for the summer. We want our staff to enjoy their summer and have some time to relax and recover from the year, but we also don't want to miss an opportunity or to miss any time where we could be sharing additional professional developments with staff and our teachers and administrators. And communication, making sure that we are providing timely, proactive, clear communication to our families regarding any changes in in-person learning. Now, our goal is, I've already mentioned, to be back in full. However, if for some reason that our situation changes and that doesn't happen, we need to be able to communicate and get that information out to our families quickly. So we've looked at this CDC data before. They have adjusted it when they put out their operational guidance earlier in March. So as of March 19th, we've been hovering way down in this low transmission area, which is the blue area. You guys have seen our positivity rates in our community. They've a little bit of an increase. I think spring break, you know, people were traveling and with Easter and some of those things, but we still continue to stay in the low transmission. This is the threshold that the Illinois State Board of Education will use. The Illinois Department of Public Health are all kind of built off this model of low transmission, moderate transmission, substantial, and then high. And we've talked about this before. It's all related to the number of new cases, the positivity rates, hospital beds, all of those same metrics. So nothing has changed there, and we'll continue to monitor those as the summer goes on. One thing that did change with the CDC is they recently, we talked about this maybe at our last meeting or maybe the meeting before that, that they have relaxed some of the social distancing, physical distancing guidelines, which will make a huge difference when we get ready to bring everyone back in the fall. So if you look at the chart, as long as communities remain in the low transmission and the moderate transmission areas, at the elementary school level, we are allowed to have 3 feet between students and classrooms. Now, I do want to reiterate that that isn't 3 feet everywhere, because right now we still have to maintain 6 feet in our eating areas or anytime you're not masked, which would mostly be breakfast and lunch. But in classroom areas, we are allowed to have 3 feet between the student desks and the student learning spaces. Same thing for middle and high school. Now, once or if we see some increases in the number of new cases, the number of people recovering in the hospital, the positivity rate increases, then the CDC says that we have to start looking at more of a cohort model, and we'll talk about our hybrid model here in just a few minutes. So you can still maintain the 3 feet of distance, but have less students in those spaces. Some of the non-negotiables here on the left is these are things that we have to continue to do no matter what. Universal masking is not going away anytime soon. I know we're all kind of burnt out with wearing masks, but it is our reality, and that'll be our reality again in the fall. So I just want to say that to any parents who might be wondering if we're still going to be expecting students and staff to wear masks. And yes, that will not change between now and the start of the school year. Physical distancing will continue to be a prevention strategy. Hand washing, respiratory etiquette, that is, covering your cough when you sneeze. Frequent hand washing is built into all of the transitions throughout the day. Cleaning and maintaining healthy facilities, and then contact tracing. Those are the 5 main prevention strategies, no matter what level of transmission you're in. Even right now, while we're in these lower blue levels of transmission, we're still required to do these things. This is just the IDPH chart, the Illinois Department of Public Health county and school metrics. So very similar to CDC. They don't highlight the red as much, but they do use the same language: minimal, moderate, substantial. So these are those same metrics you guys have seen many, many times throughout the year this year. So I'm going to switch here. So what does that mean for us, like in terms of the safety guidance? So while we're in the minimal community transmission range, in the link that you guys received in your PowerPoint, your slideshow, you can link at the top document there to see the CDC operational guidelines. But the main things that we as a district and what we're expecting our buildings to do is continue to update their crisis plans, that they're practicing healthy hygiene, that we're disinfecting and following all of our protocols there. We're monitoring student absence and staff absences. We do that right now. Our nurses have a document that anytime a student is out sick, they get the COVID exclusion letter. We monitor when they can return, and we're in constant communication with the families. The access to assess group gatherings and events, we'll continue to look at that. Right now, we are looking at every single event that comes across whether it's a building use event or a large gathering that our schools want to have. So we're involved in those conversations to make sure that everything is happening and that all the safety guidelines are being followed. Requiring sick students and staff to stay home. We will still be doing the self-screenings in the beginning of the year, just like we do now. Establishing procedures for students and staff who are sick. making sure that we are communicating with our community and reviewing the CDC guidance for businesses and employers. We will continue to do testing. Right now, I am not quite sure, so that's why I didn't put it on the slide. I'm not sure if we are going to be able to continue the rapid testing, because right now we don't, that is a free program for us. We have not had to pay for that. So as long as the IDPH will offer it to us for free, we're going to continue to provide the staff support to run the drive-through testing. So we're still going to plan to test students in the buildings, students that are symptomatic and staff members that are symptomatic, as well as offer our drive-through testing in the fall. Shield testing is still kind of getting started. We had a lot of logistical issues. John's here too, so he's been kind of hand holding with the U of I and the OSF to get everything going. So we have started testing staff. We still have hit a few logistical things, but every day it gets better. So we're very hopeful that by the end of this week, we'll be able to offer shield testing to the high school students. We have quite a few of our students who we're testing with the rapid test. So we're testing all of our IHSA sports. So we have our CNAs go to the practices and they test the athletes prior to practice, not every day, but you know, they go out to the field and they've been, when football was happening, they were testing the football players, the soccer players, cheer. We'll do the same thing for track. When wrestling starts, parents sign the consent form, and any student that we have consent for, we're providing a rapid test for them for our IHSA opportunities. So safety guidance that will inform in-person scenarios when we move to moderate. So once we move out of the blue and we see some of our metrics change a little bit, that's where we will coordinate more with our local public health officials. We will have to look at our social distancing strategies. So we may have to, you know, our public health department will be very proactive in letting us know whether or not they want us to keep the 3 feet or if we should move to 6 feet. Consider ways to accommodate the needs of children and families at risk for serious illness. So we're going to talk about that here in a minute as well. If we get to that substantial community transmission level, which we're all hoping that doesn't happen, we will continue to coordinate with our local health officials, continue ongoing communication. That is when we may have to look at implementing our in-person hybrid schedule and not the full 5-day-a-week, all day, every day. We may have to implement some strategies to continue to educate and support students remotely. And again, all of our same protocols for communication and contact tracing. And okay, let's shift here to the, so how will schools operate in the 21-22 school year? So again, our desired goal and current plans are to start the school year with all students, staff, and teachers in school 5 days a week for a full day of teaching and learning. Right now, our health metrics and the CDC guidance support this plan. We will be working with our planning teams. Kim has several instructional planning teams that she's been working with to plan the summer school opportunities. We've been working with the secondary teams to talk about, you know, what middle school and high school, what some secondary other options. So we're going to get those teams together again. We have a lot of logistics to talk about in terms of lunch. That has been our biggest barrier this year, is feeding students, because we have to have 6 feet distance. So that's something that, you know, I'll work specifically with, I think, every level except for early childhood. We will have to come up with a plan for how we will safely provide lunch for large numbers of students. We want students to be able to come through the lunch line again and have hot lunch. You know, the SAC lunch has been a gift and something that we're happy we can provide, but we want to be able to provide some other options for our students next year. We'll have to talk about traffic patterns. There's going to be a lot of conversations about master schedules. I know Dr. Weemelt's on here waiting for his presentation, but, you know, just thinking about how we're going to provide PE, how we're going to get, you know, 900 to 1,000 middle school students through lunch, and where we're going to be eating and all the spaces that might happen. So those are some of the logistical things that we still have to work out. So all the state mandated safety guidelines, right now we are still in phase 4, but as you guys know, if you've been watching any of the governor's press conferences, or if you're, you know, frequently on any of the CU PhD sites, we are really close. Well, maybe not now with this little spike that we've seen, but eventually through the course of the summer, all of the projections are saying that we will eventually hit this bridge phase. So even in the bridge phase, all of these things are required. So per IDPH and the Illinois State Board of Education, face coverings continue to be required. The 3 to 6 foot social distancing. Capacity limits are going to be determined by the space's ability to social distance. So right now we've been living under this cap of you can only have so many people in a space. As things change, the capacity limits will change to say, okay, if you can provide 1,000 people in that space, then your capacity would be 60%, or your capacity would be your ability to safely social distance people within that space. So there may not be a set number. No more than 50 people on a bus, and making sure that we have procedures for contact tracing. Right now, we have still been following our 1 student per seat on a bus. We have had a few instances where we've had to look at that and maybe add a student or 2, but if that has come up, we've looked at what else can we do. So this year we've, and again, partially that's because yeah, our numbers, as John pointed out, you know, we've hovered around about 1/3 of our population. So we've been able to handle that 1 student to a bus on a seat on the bus. But in the fall, that won't be the case. So we will have to work really carefully with first student in making sure that we don't put more than 50 people on a bus. And I don't think even in a regular school year, Carol, do we get to a point where we have 50 on a bus? It gets pretty close, yes. Yeah. Okay. So I mentioned the hybrid in-person instruction. So as our county metrics change, or in the event that they decline, it will necessitate the need for us to look at our hybrid model. At the beginning of the year, we spent a lot of time this summer on our hybrid. We had a very robust plan in place, so at least we won't have to start over. We spent a lot of time crafting out what the A/B schedule might look like. And so what that means to any parents that are listening. So a hybrid in-person instruction model will be a combination of in-person and remote learning. So students will attend 2 full days a week, and they'll have 3 days a week of remote instruction. So a student like my son might be, his last name's Tatum, so he might come to school on Thursday and Friday. And then Wednesday would be the all remote day for the school. And then students A through M might attend on Monday and Tuesday. And that'll be a way for us to keep the numbers lower, the capacity in the lunchrooms and the hallways and all those common areas will be significantly smaller. And again, this is not our desired option. This is only if our county health metrics decline and we have to reduce our numbers in person. In-person days will focus on topics and activities best taught in the classroom, and then the remote days will focus on topics that can be covered online. It won't be a 2.5 synchronous, kind of thing that what we're doing now. It'll look more like a regular full day of school with just half the students attending. So I did add a little caveat here at the end. The hybrid in-person learning model may be different across schools and levels, depending on the size of the building, the number of students enrolled, grade configurations, or the number of students who need to be prioritized for in-person instruction. So what does that mean? That means, a smaller elementary school like Wiley may not have to go to a full hybrid schedule. If we're able to safely socially distance the students, they have, about 180-ish, 190 students right now. If their enrollment stays that way, we could still probably keep a very safe social distance, physical distance in the classroom spaces and throughout the building, where we would not maybe have to put Wiley on a full hybrid schedule. A grade level. So say, I'll use the middle school, for example. So say our 8th grade numbers are significantly lower than the 6th and the 7th grade numbers. If there were a way that we could continue to offer more in person for the 8th graders, because there are fewer 8th graders, that would be something that we could look at. So I think we will have some flexibility, and we will try to maximize in-person learning as much as we can. And so that's why I put that caveat there. So just because we have to shift to a hybrid model, as long as we're still able to follow the safety guidelines for social and physical distancing, it may not mean the whole district has to go to a full hybrid just because of that. So I hope that makes sense. So hybrid learning, again, we're going to put these little pictures out to the community just as a way to kind of have a little less text, but give them an idea of what it'll look like. So again, contingent on the increase of COVID cases and positivity rates, students attend 2 full days. They'll be assigned to a group A or a group B attendance group. They'll have 2 remote learning days based on their group assignment. Everyone will be remote on probably Wednesdays, which is what our original hybrid model was set up for. We'll be providing Chromebooks. John has already shared with you guys the plan for one-to-one at UHS. We'll make sure we continue to provide internet supports and connectivity supports for families. We will not be implementing this what do we call it, Kim? The simultaneous synchronous, where we have, the remote students at home at the elementary level in with the in-person students. We will not be doing that next year. So, if you're in person all day, and there are no remote students in those sessions. It's just a regular teaching day. And a subset of students with critical needs may attend more often for additional support. That just means we may have some EL students, or we may have some students with special needs, or other students who come more frequently than 2 days a week because they need to be there for their IEP, or they need to be there for a special service. So that's just something we wanted to put out there for those families to know that would be an option. So what does this mean for the students who may need a remote option? So right now, I've shared the plans that the Illinois State Board of Education has provided as of the middle of March. Right now, they are not requiring that we offer a full remote option just as a choice. So right now, we provide that as a choice. We are not opening that up as a full choice next year. So right now we're being told, and this could change. I know ISB is going to be releasing another in-person guideline package in the next couple of weeks. So we'll wait and see what that says. But as of right now, we are offering an all remote option for students with underlying health needs. So any students who are at increased risk for severe illness, or those students who have special health care needs, they will be given a choice to remain remote for the entire 21-22 school year. That is also available for students who live with people with increased risk. So, and it doesn't have to be an immediate family member. It can be anybody who is in the home with them. So it could be a sibling, an aunt, an uncle, grandma, grandpa. If they have medically fragile people who are in their homes, then a student can also apply for this all remote option. We are asking that a doctor's note be provided, and that doctor's note will document the condition of the student, the family member, or the member of the household, and why remote instruction is required. So ISB tells us that is something that they want districts to do. I think you guys have been following the politics, and from our president and from the governor, as well as the state superintendent. They want people and they want students back in school, and they want us to do whatever we can safely to get everyone back in school in person. And that's why a full remote option choice is not being provided. However, we definitely want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students. We don't want to put anyone at risk for severe illness or, God forbid, death or anything like that. So we still want to provide this remote option for those families. I do need to add the caveat at the bottom. So students in grades pre-K through 8 may be assigned to a cohort of students with a new teacher. This teacher may or may not be from the child's home school. So in our original hybrid plan, this is the model that we were planning for and researching and investigating. So what this means is all of our staff members will be working in person. We'll accommodate 4 staff members who need to have a remote accommodation, but everyone will be working in our buildings in some way or some form or fashion. However, we know that we have some students who are not going to be able to come back because of their own health needs or their family member. So we will be assigning those students to a cohort teacher, and that teacher may not be, so if you're a Yankee Ridge student in 2nd grade, you may not be in a cohort with other 2nd grade students from Yankee Ridge. You might be with some 2nd grade students from Leal or a 2nd grade student from King. And you might have a teacher who is a homeschool teacher at Dr. Williams, and that teacher works with all of the students. And we'll figure out what that schedule looks like for them, making sure that we're providing breaks and that they still get a lunch break and they have screen breaks. They'll have asynchronous tasks that they can complete away from the teacher. So those are some of the logistics that we still have to figure out. But I did want to make sure it was very clear that we are not doing a simultaneous synchronous for the students that are at home, all remote, and that I also wanted it to be really clear that those students may be with a new cohort of students. Okay. I'm sure we'll get a lot of questions about that, but Mrs. Norton and I can address those individually if there are people who have questions about that from our public more so. So what that looks like, again, this is for our students who have severe illnesses or special healthcare needs. I've already talked about the doctor's note a little bit. We will again make sure that Chromebooks and internet support are provided for those students, that will make sure that they have healthy, functioning, good internet at home. And there will be periods of live instruction, but there will be periods of asynchronous work for those students as well. And K-8 students, that should say pre-K, sorry, may be assigned into a cohort with a new teacher. And this is just our equity commitment to all of our students. EC12 is that we're making sure that we're going to provide equitable options for all, taking into account the needs of our students and their families. Curriculum will be provided by a licensed USD teacher. I know there are a lot of districts who are using second party companies and other companies to provide the remote option. We're not doing that. We are going to use our own teaching staff and our curriculum. One of the reasons we're not able, and we'll talk about this in an upcoming slide, is we don't have a full range of digital curriculum at our elementary level. There are districts who can teach their literacy, their math, their science, their social studies, basically every subject through a digital curriculum option. We don't have that option. It's something that we haven't been providing for our students prior to COVID. I think having had to spend so much time in remote learning, we've seen that is a gap in our service. It's something that I think COVID has kind of exposed that as a need for us. So that's something that we're definitely going to be exploring in the next year or two, using our ESSER federal funds, is looking at how we can, if this were ever to happen again, we can still provide a full, robust, rigorous curriculum to our students, even if we have to do it digitally. And we're making sure that all of our students have social emotional learning and mental health supports, whether they're in school in person or whether they have to stay home because of healthcare needs. So some of our guiding questions that we've been talking about is we're trying to make all of our decisions around principles of equity and making sure that all of our students have access to grade level content in the ways that meet their individual needs. We're going to work really hard to make sure that we're providing an authentic in-person, remote, and hybrid instructional model and giving feedback. I know that was one of our lessons learned this year, is making sure that we were providing good feedback to the students while they were at home remotely. Implementing resources and strategies to provide teachers and school leaders with research-based instructional strategies. Will support the use of effective technology tools. I think we learned a lot this year with some of the technology tools that we were able to implement very quickly. And I think we know now how we can utilize like our Seesaw and our Go Guardian, Clever, and some of these other systems and tools that we implemented. Now I think we can go even deeper in what we're able to provide supports for our teachers as well as our students. Curriculum goals, as I mentioned, we definitely want to explore more digital curriculum options, especially at the K-8 levels. We've already started conversations about, prior to even receiving or finding out any amounts or what our funding might be through ESSER and the federal grants, we'd already realized that math is an area that we really needed to fine-tune our math curriculum. So we were already going to be entering into a math adoption for the 21-22. So the curriculum and student learning team has already started that process. We endeavor to invest in high quality, culturally responsive curriculum. Resources and tools utilized that can be adapted, whether, like I mentioned, we want to make sure that we're providing curriculum where it doesn't matter if students are in person, if they're hybrid, or if they're remote, that we don't have to sacrifice rigor for content. So that's something that we're really going to look at in the next coming year as we put together more of these planning teams. And then any new curriculum resources will provide differentiated support to meet the needs of our diverse learning population. Some of our lessons learned, and we learned a lot. So instructional models, consistent implementation of a district-wide instructional schedule. I think we were smart in the schedule that we created, where we didn't have overlap for families and we provided that synchronous option. You know, we had the elementary students have their time, middle school, high school. That was a smart decision. I think we experienced some challenges along the way with that, but I do think as we're planning schedules next year, whether we're talking about the full model or the hybrid model, we're going to make sure that we provide a really robust instructional schedule for families. Live learning time with students is needed. I know the asynchronous work, a lot of families talked about the increased workload and how much students were doing away from their teachers and all the independent work that was required. So I think we learned a lot there. Increasing social emotional learning opportunities when in a remote learning environment. Hopefully we don't ever have to go to a full remote learning environment, but we have put some parameters and some new systems in place. We're looking at some digital social emotional learning options where we will have some tools available, whether we're in person or not, but we will be able to provide more of a SEL support model if we ever have to provide a full remote learning environment again. Equity concerns, as you guys know, we talked about this summer and at the beginning of the year, there were some technology and connectivity concerns that I think we rebounded and we responded, but we have a solid plan. I don't know that we won't, I'm just gonna say I don't know. I know for a fact that we will have a plan for device distribution and making sure that students have what they need well before the school year starts. addressing the needs of families and students on a more individualized basis to reduce the impact of, addresses the impact of the student's ability to participate in their learning, whether it's in person or remote. Communication, I think we learned that frequent, consistent messaging is important. I know I've started the superintendent updates, the weekly updates in October, because, you know, we were hearing that families really didn't know about some of the changes, or, you know, they weren't getting a district-wide message. I think there were some hit and missing, and, you know, some of our buildings were communicating more than others. So I think we learned that reaching all families is important. I'm still working through the more of a opportunity for two-way conversations. I know that there are some of our families that don't check email regularly, so I've been talking to some of our liaisons about how we can incorporate more verbal translations and more verbal messaging beyond the written. Our French and our Spanish liaisons do that already, so they kind of take some of my written messages and or videos that I've put out, and then they kind of do their own voiceover videos. So finding a way to make sure that we're just reaching everyone, and then sharing more of our success stories. Technology, I talked a little bit about that already. So ability to rapidly distribute devices, consistent access to home internet. We have been working through our district infrastructure needs, whether we're everyone back. So, you know, John has a real plan for the stress that having this many students back and using devices will, what's going to happen in the fall. And we have a plan for all the summer work that's going to happen to make sure that we're able to provide some of those digital tools and options, whether we're, you know, half of us are in the buildings or all of us are in the buildings. Provide teachers with the tools to be flexible as instructional needs change. Plan for repairing devices quickly. I know families were bringing their devices back and maybe not getting them turned back to them right away. So we've addressed that. John has put some people power to that plan, and making sure that when we get a broken device, a family gets a new device as quickly as possible. And then honoring student privacy, security, and individuality is important. Some of our instructional practices, ongoing professional development throughout the year on new learnings is critical. I know we pushed a lot of PD at our staff really quickly at the beginning of the year, and we've done our best to try to provide more PD throughout the year. But I think having a plan now, and again, like I said, Mrs. Smith is already thinking about the summer and the fall, that will help us not feel like we're playing catch up, but we really feeling like we're in front of the professional development at all times. Flexibility in our grading policies, redos, missing work was something that those were things we had to talk through with teachers at the beginning of the year. I think we're in a really good place now, but it was definitely a lesson learned. And then supporting staff and making sure some of our own staff have had reliable access to internet in their homes. And I already talked about professional development, and we are going to make accommodations in-house for any of our staff who are unable to work in person with students. That should say in person with students. We will make sure that our staff are working in-house, and if they can't be with students, then we will accommodate that. So ensuring equity across the board. Anytime I'm doing one of these presentations now, I'm making sure that we're talking about what this means for equity. So students with disabilities, making sure that we've increased time for in-person learning as needed, that we're providing instructional materials for students at home as needed, that we're continuing to collaborate with families to plan and deliver individualized instruction as needed. For our English learners, continuity in providing bilingual supports, and not just for their classroom time, but across their day, whether it's social work, SEL time, counseling, more family outreach and support for families understanding how to support their children's learning at home, And then, of course, always continuing to recruit and hire bilingual staff. Again, not just for our classrooms. I think we do a fantastic job of making sure our students have bilingual staff who are teaching them, but we also need bilingual support staff in all these other spaces. Staff support, making sure that we have a systematic data collection and ongoing progress monitoring. That was a challenge, definitely a challenge while we were remote. We're going to be looking at some options here in the next few weeks of how we make sure that we're still able to collect assessment information, whether we're remote or not. A more coordinated plan to provide multi-tier supports during asynchronous and synchronous times. And again, always continuing to talk about professional development. So timeline, our last board meeting is June 15th. And again, I can't say this enough, but all decisions and actions that we take are going to be based on the most recent Illinois Department of Public Health, our local public health department, and the CDC health data and metrics. We are actively going to provide back to school updates via our school board meetings up through now and June 15th, through school newsletters, messages from the superintendents. I know a lot of our administrators do their own kind of weekly updates. So those will continue throughout the summer. But by June 15th, we will make a firm decision, as right now we're saying as of April 6th today, that our goal is to return full in-person learning 5 days a week. If our situation changes between now and June 15th, which I don't anticipate that it will, we will confirm and communicate our model as of that last board meeting. July 6th, online registration opens for returning families. So there'll be a lot of messaging going out about that. And we're also asking that any families that are interested in requesting the all remote medical underlying health condition option also do that by July 6th. I know that feels really, really early, but in order for us to, we are going to have to post the positions in-house in district for our staff members who are going to be working with those students. So we can't wait until August to find out who those families are, because we need to know how many teachers we need and how we're going to put those cohorts together. July 6th even feels a little late, but I know if families let us know what their situation is, then I think that gives us a good month and a half to try to coordinate and connect students with teachers. We've already decided that July 28th and 29th will be new student, new family registration. We did that last summer, and I think it went, we were able to do that very safely, so we'll do that again. Early August, we'll begin device distributions and connectivity supports out to families. And then mid-July, we'll kind of start a countdown to the first day of school. So we'll again be sending out weekly updates, weekly communication through our SkyAlert system once a week starting in the middle of July. Getting close to the end. So next steps. Our group, our team, Mrs. Norton and I, Todd, our directors, John, we're going to continue to work with the planning teams to put together what the instructional day will look like. We'll work with Carol and Randy to come up with a logistics plan for cleaning, for bus, for lunches, food. We'll have to develop an instructional planning schedule. And we also want to give our teachers time. I know that was one of the big asks from our staff when we were looking at our model for elementary. One of the main reasons that we went with the simultaneous synchronous model was to continue to allow our elementary teachers that instructional planning time across grade levels. So we'll definitely have to make sure that we honor that and continue to find a way to make that happen next year. And finalize plans for both in-person, hybrid learning, and hybrid learning. So both scenarios are ready to go for August 2021, no matter what. So if our health metrics begin to change in the middle of July or early August, we don't want to have to pull teams together at that point and say, oh no, we need a plan. We want to have both of these plans ready to go. The full in-person plan ready to go. Our hybrid plan, as I mentioned, only just needs some tweaking because it was already, I think, a really well thought out plan last August, but we want to have both scenarios ready to go for the first day of school, no matter which direction we end up going. Engaging families around their questions regarding in-person learning. Utilize the summer months to provide optional professional development. And finalize and communicate a timeline for key decisions and actions for the 21-22 school year. We really need our families to stay connected with us. So everybody, please, please, please update your contact information. Make sure we have your cell phone. Make sure we have your email. If we have to, middle of July, message out a change in our operational model, we don't want families emailing us August 16th saying, what happened? I thought we were going back to school. What's the plan? So we want to be able to make sure that we're reaching everybody. So please, please, please update your contact information. Check the district's website. We're going to post this plan and any subsequent plans after this. We'll be putting them on the website so everybody can check those. And then follow the district's social media updates. So as the board knows, our community may not know this, but we do not have a director of marketing and PR right now. Our communications director left us a couple months ago. We're going to be hiring for that position, hopefully very soon. But throughout the summer, no matter what, or no matter who's here, make sure that you're following our Facebook and Twitter so you can stay up to date on celebrations, news, and school happenings. I think that is it. Questions? I know that was a lot, but there'll be a lot more to come, but I know we've gotten a lot of questions about what next year is going to look like. So I really wanted to make sure I spent some time tonight so families can make plans. I know a lot of our families need to figure out what next year is going to look like for them for work and school and childcare and all those things. So we needed to really get this information out now. Questions?
Hi, this is Peggy. Thanks, Jennifer. I mean, for providing such a comprehensive plan for next year. It just seems like you and your team have considered all possible angles and you're really juggling multiple balls. And I know families in the district appreciate that. One thing when I was looking at the state's P20 council, which is, a group of the state superintendent, I know you know who they are, but a lot of the people in the administrative offices in the state of Illinois related to education, they had a long list of recommendations on learning renewal resources for districts to consider. And one of them was, the thought about redesigning our school calendar and lengthening the school day or a year as a way to sort of recapture. I mean, a good thing to do, but especially now as we're trying to recapture a lot of learning loss. Is that something that your team considered? Is that an option for us, I guess, in the near future?
So what we've talked about is not all 4,300 of our students need to have extra days added to their calendar, right? And not every single student needs to go an extra 2 weeks or needs to stay every day till 5 o'clock. So what we've talked about is we're going to still offer those supports. We've said today, we've said multiple times in the last week, once we found out about our funding, that this is not going to be the last summer that we have a summer lineup of this extended learning, this extensive summer learning opportunity. This is going to become our norm for the next 3 or 4 years. So we are going to have to have some conversations about what summers might look like at the elementary, and that's going to shift a little bit. We are going to provide after school at every single building as well. I know that's not been something that we've done because we've only done that at the schools that have had 21st century learning grants. So King has benefited from that. Dr. Williams, Leo, but moving forward, every single building will have an opportunity to plan for an after-school model. So that is how we're going to address the needs of the students who need it the most, versus just kind of blanketing that as something that every single student or family might need, because not every family will want that. But we want to make sure we offer the extended day, the extended learning opportunities in the summer, as well as any after-school programming for the students that need to take advantage of that.
That makes a lot of sense. Thanks for explaining that. The only thing that concerns me is that we have no way to really insist that those students maybe who might benefit most from those options
Sure.
take advantage of those options. I mean, right? I mean, we
Yep,
can't ask them to go to the summer or after school or any of those. And
we've met that challenge, I think, even this year with, we've had to back off a little bit because there were some families that basically said, I'm not sending my kid back. So, even though we called, and I think with COVID and with fear of COVID and people's personal health needs and things like that, we respected that. But moving forward next year, I think we are going to have to be a little more insistent. We've talked about that more so at the secondary level, what that means to promotion and moving students to the next grade level. If they've not engaged and don't have the prerequisites for that next level of learning. Now that's harder to do at the elementary level, but I think those would be conversations we'd have to have with families next year if it came to that.
great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I build on Peggy's comments that you mentioned that the extended day and extended year possibilities was really important at the elementary level. I think it's also equally necessary at the middle school and high school level for many students who basically have lost a year. So I'm hoping that that's still under consideration.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, when you said after school for kids who need it, what did you, forgive me if you already mentioned it, what about the actual, just the day-to-day before and after school child care programs that aren't necessarily the academic ones?
Sure. So we've talked about that as well. And I haven't had to have a sit-down conversation with Sandy Davin yet, but even what we're offering right now, I think now we're trying to get kids from behind screens and doing more hands-on is really important. But next year, even the after-school program, we will have to marry some academics with that. It won't just be able to be coming and doing homework or, kind of that homework club model. It will have to be some intensive tutoring involved. We're of course, are going to rely on our experienced certified master teachers. Right now we pay them and they get paid an additional duty to stay after school. A lot of them are doing that right now, keeping students at the elementary level beyond the 11 o'clock hour, or meeting with kids in the afternoon. They're already doing that fourth quarter. So yes, we will offer any of our teachers who want that opportunity. We will have the funding to be able to have them providing the academics, and then the after school program students, after school program leaders can also provide learning in a fun way. There are ways that you can do cooking and some of these other enrichment kinds of things and still incorporate learning, and learning can still be fun. But we are also going to make sure that we're providing that intensive tutoring as well through a USD licensed staff member.
Gotcha. Thank you. And my only other question was about the decision to go all remote for those families who need to have exemption. Is this going to be a one and done thing in the fall, or will they be able to revisit that question when first semester ends?
So the July 6th date is really, really important. I know, like I said, I think it's going to be early, and there's some families who maybe won't be able to let us know, but it is going to be important for us for planning purposes to know that for the first semester. Now, if you're asking if someone chooses in July, do they have to do that for the whole year? You know, we haven't really talked about that, but I think we've been really flexible this year with families. I know Mrs. Norton has, you know, worked with families. So if someone's situation changed through the course of the year, you know, maybe a family member isn't able to get vaccinated right now, but, you know, their health situation changes and they can take the vaccine later, then I think we would want to give students an opportunity to come back in person if they could. I think we probably would ask them to do it at least for the quarter at the elementary level. And then for middle school and high school, it's really difficult to have a student just kind of hop in, you know, in the middle of October and join a course if they've been remote in some other way. So we probably will ask the secondary students to make a semester decision and the elementary students to at least make a quarter decision and go from there. So we haven't really put that out in, you know, in a formal way yet, but that's our early thinking. So
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the
no,
spot.
it's okay.
Have you put a pin in it? I don't want parents getting confused
Yeah.
and calling the district and being upset because they think that they're locked in one way or the other, or they're not.
Yep.
So my
Yeah,
apologies. if I
no,
confused
no,
anybody.
no, it's a good question. We just have not had a chance to, like, I know Dr. Weemelt's here. We haven't met with the high school team yet. But just based on how we experienced this year is one of those lessons learned. I think it would be really hard to have students just decide in the middle of a quarter, I'm going to go back to the middle school or the high school. So I think the levels are a little different. But again, we haven't put that down as a hard and fast rule, but it's definitely something that we will talk about.
Thank you. Other board members with questions? Okay, well, thank you so much for that very comprehensive review. And I know that and nothing's set in stone, but this at least gives us something to hope for and aim for come summer and fall. And I'm sure everybody's same as me. We just want to hear some good news. So thank you. Right, moving on. Okay, that concludes our administrative reports for tonight. So we're moving on to section 8.0, and I have my gavel here for our public hearing.
I'm going to make sure nobody's out there, but you keep going.
Thank you. I'll do it again if you need me to, but as we mentioned with our last meeting tonight, we have a public hearing, which I have the gavel for people viewing at home to give the public a chance to comment should they desire to on the intent of the board to sell $12 million worth of working cash fund bonds for the purpose of increasing the working cash fund for the district. So before I finalize that, I just want to make sure there's nobody who needs to make a comment from if Dr. Ivory Tatum comes back.
While we're waiting, Ann, if I could, I'll just add one thing, just to give some more purpose to the bonds. This is the renovation for Thomas Paine, as well as our $3 million rolling working cash that we do every 3 years. So that is the purpose and the intent of selling these bonds.
Great. Thank you for providing the clarification. We're good to go. Okay, so nobody has any public comments. So I think that concludes our public hearing. All right, now moving on to action items. 9.1, we have the Aquatic Center roof, the bid award. Randy Ashman is here to talk about the approval for the bids on getting our roof replaced and fixed at the Aquatic Center. So I think, Randy, I'll let you take it away.
Good evening, everyone.
Get back. I'm sorry. It's an action item, but I know that we had some bids. So did you need to discuss the bids that you got? I mean, this we need to take a vote on it, but should I need a motion first if we want to approve the bid opening? Is that right? Am I reading this right? Then as soon as we've got the motion in a second, then we can ask questions.
So moved.
Second,
Move the administrative recommendation on who to accept for the winning bid.
and second.
Second from Ruth Ann. Okay, now it can open the floor to questions. Does anybody have questions of Randy for the bids that were placed in March? Okay, seeing none. And Randy, did you have anything else you wanted to add before we take a vote?
No, I don't think so, other than, I mean, I've only been here a couple of years, but this is the first time I think we've ever ever had any help getting some funding, the aquatic center, or I'm sorry, the park district offered to pay half of the what's the word I'm looking for? The alternate bid package number 1, $14,000 for the added insulation for the roof to bring us up to code, and the park district's offered to pay for half of that. So just wanted to say thanks to them. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much for all of the Urbana Park District for helping us out. We love the aquatic center. We want to keep it running as smoothly as possible. So thank you for that. Okay, we have a move and a second. I need a roll call, please, Ruth Ann.
Member Carter is still not here. That's all right. Member Dimmitt,
Yes.
Member Patton,
Yes.
Member Pulaski,
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. Vice President Exum is not available here yet, and President Hall.
Yes, I believe we have a majority, so the motion passes. Okay, that was our only that was our only action item. So now we'll move on to 10.0. And our study topic for tonight is with Mrs. Yvonne Smith and Dr. Joe Wiemelt of the middle school and our Director of Professional Development to discuss AVID. I will let you both take it away. It sounds very exciting.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us this evening. I think Mrs. Smith is going to get us started.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Yvonne Smith, and I serve as the Director of Professional Development and the District Director for AVID at Urbana Middle School. Thank you for allowing us this time tonight to present to you about AVID at Urbana Middle School. I just want you to remember, AVID is proven achievement, a lifelong advantage. Our agenda for tonight for our AVID presentation includes looking at our team, explaining what AVID is, and also looking at the Urbana Middle School's implementation, what we've done this year and what we're going to do next year in rolling out AVID. And then we will have some time at the end for questions and answers. So this is our AVID site team. So tonight you're going to hear from our site coordinator, Jessica Shad, our principal, Dr. Joe Wiemelt. And then also I want you to know that our site team consists of various roles and responsibilities at Urbana Middle School and the district level. Urbana's middle school site team consists of the 3 assistant principals, 3 counselors, 3 AVID elective teachers, 1 for each grade level at this time. And then we have 10 site team members, which includes an instructional coach, 2 restorative practice facilitators, and then also teachers of various content levels. We also feel that it's very imperative that we have district support in order to assist the implementation and sustain AVID in Urbana School District, but specifically right now at Urbana Middle School. We have 2 secondary district director supports, and then we also are supported by our AVID program manager, Cindy Gordon, who provides not only district workshops, regional workshops, she sits in on some of our site team meetings, coordinates with our site coordinator, principal and myself, and then also implementation support that we need along the way. So now I present to you Urbana Middle School's AVID by the site coordinator, Jessica Shad, and Dr. Joe Wiemelt.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Smith. And as Ms. Smith mentioned, I'm Joe Wiemelt, principal at Urbana Middle School, and I'm very excited and appreciative of the opportunity for Urbana Middle School to become an AVID school. Currently, this year is our first year of AVID implementation at Urbana Middle School, and I want to emphasize that it's not specifically a program or a specific and small kind of initiative that a school would take on as just an individual piece that you add to a school, but it really is about re-envisioning your school-wide approaches to teaching and learning and supporting students with a particular focus on preparing students for college readiness and career readiness. And so we oftentimes talk about college and career readiness and what that looks like, but AVID as a framework and as a broader organization and support system allows schools to be much more intentional with how we're fostering a college and career readiness curriculum and school-wide approach to supporting students. One thing I just realized as we were starting is we didn't actually spell out what AVID stands for. on these slides. Maybe later we did, but I didn't see them at the beginning. So AVID stands for Advancement via Individualized Determination, but everyone goes by and calls it AVID for short. But it is a structured approach to more rigorous curriculum. One of the things that we have talked a lot about at Urbana Middle School in the last 3 years while I've been principal there is really getting back to fostering rigorous learning opportunities for students, coupled with the support that they need to be successful. And so over the last, maybe the first year that I was there, maybe the year or two leading up to the first year that I was principal, there was a lot of focus on behavior and restorative practices, which were all important, but we lost sight a little bit of the emphasis on teaching and learning and rigorous learning opportunities for students in combination with restorative practices and behavior and school-wide culture and climate. So this is one really important way for us to reinvigorate and reinvent ourselves as a school committed to academic excellence. And so it also, as the third bullet point points out, is a direct support structure for first-generation college students. So it really is an approach that's school-wide for all students with a layer, almost like a tier 2 support that is added to the school system at the schools that are implementing AVID to provide more structured readiness skills for students to be ready for college, particularly students whose parents or grandparents or family members never attended college and they don't necessarily understand the ins and outs of what it means to be ready for college. This is a structured program to increase the number of students moving into advanced classes and moving on to college and post-secondary trade schools and other things like that. It's also really nice, and what we focused a lot on this year is professional learning for educators. So when we talk about increasing rigorous learning opportunities for students, what has to happen first is rigorous learning opportunities for teachers to continue to develop their craft as teachers and as educators. And so that's also a really strong benefit of a school-wide approach, is that every single teacher gets an additional toolkit or tools added to their toolkit to be more effective and to continue growing as educators, which we're very excited about. On this slide, we're not going to show the video that's linked there, but we do want to emphasize that that is a really short video that you can look at that does a nice job of just kind of unpacking what AVID is. And so this slide has been very theoretical. And then the next slide just talks a little bit about statistics. As we keep going, we'll provide a little bit more clarity about what it looks like in practice as we go. So the next slide just provides a little bit of an overview of what AVID is and what it looks like across the country and what the outcomes are with schools and districts that become AVID schools, that reinvigorate or redesign their learning pathways to be centered around the AVID framework. And so as you can see, AVID is very, very popular in the South. It's very, very common in Texas and around that area, but there are a lot of schools in the Midwest, in particular, I know for sure all 3 Champaign middle schools and high schools, I believe both high schools are AVID schools and implementing AVID and have been for several years, as well as maybe a couple elementary schools. But in general, across the country, we see that if students participate in AVID, they're at a much greater rate of moving on to post-secondary and being successful in post-secondary. So accepted to four-year college, four-year colleges, persistent in the second year of college at 85%. It's very much that students who come from first generation, low income backgrounds, underrepresented groups historically are 4 times more likely to graduate than their like peers, their similar peers who aren't in an AVID system or an AVID school. And so as we think about graduation rates, as we think about matriculation to post-secondary, whether that's community college, four-year university, or trade schools, we know statistically speaking that school districts are more successful when implementing AVID for students who are historically part of underrepresented groups. So students of color, students from low-income backgrounds, so on and so forth. And so this is just a little bit of statistics to share. If you go to the AVID website, there is an entire website page dedicated to research and statistics that you can look at for further information. Our next slide is related to the AVID elective. So we'll touch a little bit more, the AVID elective student profile, excuse me. So the students that we've talked about a school-wide implementation this year, and what that looks like, we'll talk more about in just a moment, but it really is about our teaching and learning practices for all students and all teachers to increase their skill set, right? But there's also a group of students that we target and that we specifically prioritize to receive an extra layer of support to be on the pathway towards college and career readiness. And so these are students who have either, they're kind of right there in the middle, right? They're not excelling quite yet. So maybe we think about 6th graders, 7th graders that are getting B's and C's in school. They're kind of testing at the average level on assessments. They're doing well, but they're not excelling quite yet. And so we all know those students, and we all have those children in mind that we think of that could be great students and be on the high honor roll if they had a little bit more of a support system in place. Those are the students that we're looking at to provide an extra layer of support as part of an AVID school. And so what that looks like typically is what's called an AVID elective class that students take in addition to the regular courses that they take. So it's an elective like any other type of elective. But the types of students that we're looking for are students from historically underrepresented groups or underserved groups, first generation college students, could benefit from that extra guidance and support. That's kind of right, as I mentioned, at that average level. They're just not quite meeting maybe the state standards on assessments, but they're right there and they need an extra boost. The AVID elective student will get an elective class every day from a trained teacher to provide the increased skills and organization and study skills and those habits that we know are important for students to be scholars, right? To move on to post-secondary and be ready for that. That's what the AVID elective does, is really targets those students in the middle, so to speak. That oftentimes you hear probably as board members that we spend a lot of time for students that really, really struggle, and maybe a lot of time for students that excel because we have accelerated courses or we have AP classes, but there's a lot of students right there in the middle that we're not maybe reaching completely. Those are the students that we want to reach with AVID. So I'll pass the next slide over to Ms. Shad, who is a phenomenal in her first year as an AVID site coordinator, has gone above and beyond and has done a great job, and we're super excited to have her as our site coordinator. She's going to talk a little bit about what the universal strategies have been this year and how we provide these learning opportunities for teachers to affect and work with all students.
Thank you, Dr. Weemelt. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I just want to touch upon a little bit of, like he said, some of the things that we've been talking about with our staff. And one of the big things that we've been talking about are the Wicker strategies. And the Wicker strategies stand for writing, inquiry, collaboration, organization, and reading. And they're just there's nothing special about these Wicker strategies in particular. It's how we're using them as a framework in order to help teachers have common language with students across the board in our school, so that they're hearing it in social studies and science, and they're using similar strategies for reading, and they're using similar strategies on when they're writing something or organizing their notes, in order to have that universal support for all students, that they're all getting similar strategies of support. And so there are some resources linked on this slide as well, a poster that explains in more detail what each of those different letters stand for and some examples of some of the strategies that we may use. I'll just use one as a reference when I'm looking at like writing. It has quick writes. So how are we encouraging all of our teachers across the board to use quick writes as a way to increase writing in our classrooms? And the more that we talk about that with students and the more that we get all students doing similar things, again, it's benefiting our students in the long run, that they're seeing that consistency across the board. So that's a big part of the universal part of AVID, is having the common language for us to use as teachers and staff in our classrooms. The other part of AVID is looking at this framework, and I'm actually going to show a short video explaining the AVID framework because I think they say it way better than I could. But we're looking at the framework from two parts, mainly like what are educators needing to do and what are we needing to make sure students have to succeed. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop talking. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can share my audio, which I accidentally clicked that ahead of time. And then I will let this speak for itself. If you guys cannot hear it, please let me know, but hopefully this should work.
When we think about the school system and you think about what happens in a schoolhouse, it doesn't really matter where you go. These things are happening. There's instruction happening in a school, in a building. There are systems at play. in an educational environment or in a school, there is leadership at play. There's somebody helping to drive the priorities of that school, and there's a culture that's being shaped. What we know is that schools are perfectly designed to get the results that we are getting now. So what we know is that while they're designed to really benefit students in many, many ways, that there are still a lot of gaps in our schools. We think about the AVID College and Career Readiness Framework as a way to think about closing those gaps and a way to think about who the students are in the schools very, very deliberately. So this framework for us is a lens through which we look at student potential. So I'm going to ask you, as you look at this picture right here, to do that. Make this triangle. And you should notice when you do that, when you look at it, you cut out all the noise. The distractions are outside the triangle, and you zero in on something that you're focused on deliberately. That's the purpose for us shaping our framework as a triangle. So when we think about our framework, college and career readiness, you're going to notice that there are words around the sides. So we have rigorous academic preparedness. Second side over here on the right is opportunity knowledge. This third side right here, called student agency, is really, it's on the inside of the triangle by design. It's the inside out part. We think about these three sides of the triangle here as the student outcomes. If your goal is to have college and career readiness on a campus, this provides definition for what that means. When we think about this is what students need. It requires the adults to be doing something, right? The adults in that school building insist on rigor. They insist on opportunities for all students to be challenged. And here's the part about AVID on this. You can't just put kids in a challenging, rigorous environment by themselves. There has to be support that comes with it. I have 40 years of experience knowing that if you partner rigor with support, those students will be successful. That's the target here. The adults are responsible for making that possible. Adults are breaking down barriers. So think about what the barriers might be for students. It could be that there's not an advanced placement class or another course of rigor. That's a barrier. Adults are responsible for removing them. Aligning the work. So on a campus, there are lots of initiatives happening in districts and in schools. As the leader of a school or in a district, it's my job to help align that work. And then last, advocate for students. And this is one of the areas that I think as educators we get super passionate about, because this is the part where you stand up for students. So I want you to imagine that you're wearing a backpack, and right now it's empty. And every single period you go to, you're filling that backpack up. And you're filling it with your academic rigor. As you go through your day, you've got adults around you that are giving you opportunities to know about opportunities and how to engage in them. You're putting all those experiences in that backpack. You're filling it up. And you're feeling pretty good because you know stuff. You know things you can go do. Here's the challenge. If we just send that kid along their way, there's no guarantee that you know what to do with everything that's in that backpack. We're the part that helps them activate what's in the backpack. If you don't have all of that together, we just have a lot of people carrying around a lot of stuff and getting sore shoulders.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop it there. That basically gets you the understanding of the value and the importance of AVID. And I really like that because it showcases how all of these different pieces of the triangle are really needing to be done by us as educators, and why we spent this year trying to work on these different pieces and how it fits with our equity work that we're already doing and our increasing instructional practices in our building. And all of those pieces really build on what AVID is about and giving students the things they need to be successful. And a big thing we'll talk about at the end for our recruitment is looking at how we can have advocates for students so that they can be successful and that they're not left on this journey on their own. Oops, and I clicked on the wrong thing. I apologize. Hang on. Okay. So the next thing we're going to just quickly share is our own personal why and why we believe that UMS is why we wanted UMS to be an AVID school. And so for me, I would say my why is really that building wide support and having that common language with teachers and being able to use that as a way to help teachers improve their practice, and then being able to see other teachers use it is really helpful in how that looks across the board. So that universal support is really my why. But then I can't also forget the AVID elective and how powerful that is for helping, like Dr. Wiemelt said, that middle group of students that we don't really currently have good structures for helping them move up into becoming an excelling student when they have that potential. I'm going to go ahead and let Dr. Wiemelt and Ms. Smith share their why as well. And then I will show you that you can see a lot of everybody else's whys from our school, from different sessions we've had, if you click on the links to this slide.
Mrs. Smith, would you like to go first? And then, because I have the next couple slides afterward. And
I sure will. So one of the things that really attracted me to AVID, and I'm excited about rolling it out and implementing it at Urbana Middle School, is because we have over time seen that the opportunities is where we have the gap that creates, right? And so what happens is AVID allows for various levels of opportunities. Not only will the students be able to interact with educators, they'll be guest speakers, a more rigorous curriculum, they'll have a different level of engagement. And so there are a lot of things that build into the triangle of AVID as to our why. The other exciting part about it is training the teachers on things that they already know, but just bringing it out in a different way to engage all of our students, and not just the students in the AVID elective classes. And so when you think about it, my whys are, number one, providing opportunities for all students. And number two, providing professional development for all teachers. And then the last thing is engaging families in this process along the way. AVID is what we make it, and we're going to make AVID what it needs to be for Urbana Middle School.
Thank you. And Jessica, if you want to just go ahead to the next slide, my why will just kind of come out in the implementation plan and those. So if you want to open full screen, I think we still see all your, whoops, we saw all your.
All right, guys, you guys still see my millions of tabs. My apologies.
I think what I would add to what Yvonne and Jessica have already shared is with my why correlates to these slides, because it has really helped us rethink and reinvigorate our mission, vision, core values, and goals. So our mission and vision are listed here as we started, 3 years ago when I started at UMS, we spent the first year to 2 years reworking our mission, vision, and values and goals. And as we've switched to AVID and implementing AVID, we've been able to incorporate a lot of the framework into our work. And so you can see our mission, vision, particularly the vision, emphasizing the success in a global society, equity, engagement, and collaboration, really pulls from this triangle. Next slide, Jessica. And then we've been able to pull some of the core values from what we've been doing and what AVID brings to really help us align our work and align our core values together. When we review our mission, vision, core values, and goals on an ongoing basis, and everything we do at UMS ties right back to this. And so whenever we do a PD session, whatever the topic is, we align it and we specifically say which school improvement goal we're talking about here, which part of our mission and vision are we talking about in our core values. And I've actually received lots of positive praise from colleagues in other schools about how strong they think our mission, vision, and core values are, because we put it on our website and we put it everywhere in terms of the work that we do. So my why, next slide, it really helps as a principal provide the framework and the connectivity, right? The cohesiveness of everything that we do. So these are our 3 broad school improvement goals, and AVID is built into all 3 of those goals in different ways. And so when you look at our school improvement plan, which we're not doing tonight, you would see that AVID is like an action step in multiple areas. And there's particular data points that we're pulling from AVID that are helping us measure whether or not we're meeting these goals, et cetera. And then the next couple slides just show those examples. So the work that we're doing around curriculum and assessment, you can see the bottom bullet point, AVID implementation as a part of it. Equity, you can see that AVID implementation is a part of our equity goal and how we're closing equity gaps and disproportionality and what that looks like to get more kids, particularly underrepresented kids, into our more advanced classes is a piece of AVID. And then our next slide talks about just this real quick quote that Jessica's going to unpack for us. But the last thing I'll say, because my time's up and my slides are up, is that I'm really appreciative of the district's support, the board support, because moving in this direction takes a school-wide commitment and a district-wide commitment, and we're really already seeing a lot of benefits from moving in this direction from our students and from our staff. So thank you.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Dr. Mumel and what Ms. Smith said, and I think she said it perfectly, hitting on that idea that AVID is for all students, and we're really trying to impact all students. And that's what this AVID school-wide quote is saying, that we're taking that framework and we're taking the 4 areas that we didn't even really touch upon outside of the framework, the instruction, the systems, the leadership, and the culture, that we need to make sure we are doing all of those with AVID in mind and doing those well to ensure readiness for all students, not just our AVID elective students who are needing that extra push to get there, but for all students, and in making sure that they all have that opportunity available to them. And that's what AVID school-wide system part is all about. So just to show you a little bit about, well, how have we been getting there? We've talked about the things that we've been doing this year, but what has that been? I'm not going to go through all of these different links, but I did just want to put together the different AVID related topics we've talked about. So we had 20 staff members attend our summer training for AVID. So that was our very first time doing anything AVID related. So having 20 staff members was a really great start to our AVID team. And you saw the list of people that are on our current AVID team earlier in our presentation. And then we have had several all staff presentations on AVID. We started with this similar conversation that we're having right here. Why AVID? Why is AVID important? Getting that buy-in from our staff from the very beginning. And I would say that was a really powerful session. And we watched the video that we linked in the very beginning of the presentation, and we had each teacher respond to that. And it was one of those times you usually get some pushback from people, but everyone was so positive and so like on the same page that AVID is something that is going to help our students. And it was really cool to see that. We then have focused a lot on organization and rigor and literacy and how we're incorporating some of those WICR strategies into our classroom. So we've been focusing on some more like specific strategies within those sessions. And again, you could click on those links to be able to see what our actual presentations were. We've also done some breakout sessions during our school improvement meetings. And those have been also focused on those individual strategies and how we can use them to support our assessments, especially virtually, and then our remote learning in general, and increasing engagement, and how WICR can help that universally as well. We also meet monthly as an AVID site team, and we review, we share ideas. How is AVID going? We talk about new PD that we might need to support our site team as well as to support the school. And that has been a really great time too, to just share resources, share ideas. What is the vibe out there about AVID, and what can we do to continue to support people? So those weekly or monthly meetings have been really important for us. And then we want to just touch upon some of our plans for this summer leading into next year when we plan on starting our AVID elective class. We're going to start our AVID elective class with 6th grade, and we decided to pick two schools from the elementary school to focus on recruitment from. I'm going to let Yavonda talk about why and the thinking behind where we got those 2 schools from, and then I'll pick back up.
Yes, so currently right now, we have Yankee Ridge and Dr. Preston L. Williams Jr. Elementary School are the 2 schools we're going to be recruiting from specifically, but that does not mean we will not take recommendations from any other school. Now, both of these 2 schools are very unique. They both have a dual language program. One is dual language Spanish immersion, and the other one is dual language French immersion models. Both of those schools are Ill Empower schools, meaning they receive grant funds from the state in order to help support programming, professional development, materials, and instruction in the school, and also just continue to build capacity for the students and the staff as well. So these 2 schools were chosen because one of the schools already has a trained administrator, and then the other administrator has already previously asked to be trained. And so as we continue to roll out our model across the district, we're starting with 6th grade at the middle school, but remember, we're going to need to increase to 7th grade, to 8th grade, and eventually to high school. But we also want to make sure too that we go down and continually also pour into the elementary schools. And then we can sustain a full district model for elementary, middle school, and high school. Currently for this summer, we do have a couple of 5th grade teachers because we just got finished at our staff development day last week, talking to all of our 5th grade teachers because we feel the important need of all of them understanding what AVID is and what AVID is not. And so what we did was took a survey and asked teachers if they want to attend the AVID training this summer, they are able to do so if they are a 5th grade teacher feeding from either Yankee Ridge or Dr. Preston L. Williams Jr. Elementary School. It is our goal that as we continually build capacity at Urbana Middle School, we also look for staff at Urbana High School. We don't want to wait until it's time to add on AVID at the high school to train them. We want to go ahead and get people acclimated with AVID so that we can continue to build capacity, like I said, both ways across our district.
Thank you, Yvonne. You said that very well. And so, like Yvonne said, last week we met with the 5th grade teachers, and part of our transition for getting this elective up and running is that unlike most electives that students just sign up for and are put into, we have an application process and an interview process that students go through in order to show that they are dedicated to this program, to being an AVID student, and to what AVID is about and what AVID means. And so we presented to the teachers so that they really understood what AVID was, so that they could recommend students that they think would be potentially good AVID students. And then they have their own recommendation form to fill out that we can then follow up with those students. We also are going to go and present to the 5th grade students in multiple ways. So I will be presenting to the 5th grade students at both of those 2 schools in their classes. And then we will be presenting to all 5th grade students when they come to 6th grade transition days. We also want to make sure that we're advocating for our students, providing them with that support to get that application completed, because that might be something that a lot of students have never done. So we will be providing application support. We will also be doing that in our other languages as well, in Spanish and French, because we know that we do not want to have any barriers for a student to be able to apply for this program. And it should look like the similar demographics to our school in the AVID elective course itself. And then, so we're going to have a website that's getting currently put together. We'll be pushing it out on social media so that all students, although we are targeting Yankee Ridge and Dr. Williams to support them and help them envision how that can work, like she said, going down, but we are recruiting from all students across the board for this year. So that is something that we want to make sure is very clear, that anybody can apply. We're not holding anybody back just because they're not at those 2 schools. And then we are going to also do an informational parent night, part of our transition night. We're going to have the second half of that be for parents who are interested in learning more about AVID, and then time for them to get help filling out their applications at that time as well. And then finally, over the summer, we want to continue to build capacity within the middle school itself, as well as going up and down. But so our goal is to have at least 10 of our 20 staff go through the training again to continue to increase their knowledge, as well as trying to add 10 new staff members. So we're hoping to have 30 next year, build that capacity by 50% more, and just continue to grow so that our whole school can have that AVID feel. And not be an isolated group of teachers that are our AVID site team. And that is all we have for you guys today. We are now going to turn it over to a Q&A if you guys have any questions for us.
Questions from board members?
Yes, I do. Wondering how does this fit into the regular school day? I mean, is the elective course after school, or did you have to choose between other electives and this elective?
The AVID elective is provided during the day, offered during the day. And so it is one of those that students would have to choose. So it would be, out of the two elective classes that students can choose from, they would have to choose between AVID and other electives that are offered throughout the day. But as a reminder, so it's not, the AVID elective isn't for all students, right? So it's not necessarily, the elective isn't for all students. Let me clarify that. So there will be some like course conflicts that will arise, but what we know historically from, and just in conversations that I've had with our AVID person from Avid and other principals is there's very minimal like movement of students out of certain electives and into Avid, right? Like this competition between different elective classes is very minimal, if any, because we're targeting students that have historically been underserved. Oftentimes, those students are not necessarily in multiple electives already. So it's just, those are the types of students that we're targeting, not trying to pull students out of other elective classes, if that makes sense.
Okay. It's too bad that this can't, I mean, as this grows in popularity, we might want to consider, it's down the road, but as this grows in popularity, this might be an occasion to talk about an extended day at the middle school, so that students don't have to choose between music and Avid, as an example, or foreign language and Avid.
I love extended days. I'm all for that conversation.
And then before I relinquish the floor, I think this has this could be a very important piece of the puzzle of trying to make sure that at the high school level that AP classes are more representative of the entire student body. And so I applaud this. This is welcome news to me. I think it has great promise. And I'm glad to see it.
Yeah, I just have a more general question. So it sounds like Avid is a national program that's been around for a while, and there are certain implementation expectations that an outside consultants or implementers come and guarantee that we're doing it right. I mean, is that correct?
Yeah, so there's an external kind of, for lack of better terms, auditing or compliance process to make sure that we are implementing Avid fully. And it's not necessarily that, from my understanding, it's not necessarily that you would get anything taken away per se, like if you're not fully meeting anything, but they acknowledge and honor and celebrate the schools that are fully implementing, right? And so it's a pretty robust external evaluation process when folks come in. So there's internal processes that we can do to make sure we're ready, right? Auditing. But then the external audit comes in and provides that direct feedback to say, here's our recommendation to increase the numbers in this elective, or to improve your school-wide implementation because not all teachers know or understand Avid or things like that. They provide that direct feedback. And so sometimes you'll see, if you look at the Avid website, you'll see there's like showcase schools or spotlight schools. That's the schools that have hit like the full, for lack of better terms, they got an A on their external audit and are fully implementing well. And they become like national demonstration sites, and they bring schools and colleagues from other schools to come visit. And I know Jefferson in particular has had that in the past, and we went and visited Jefferson a couple years ago. They've seen a lot of really good success with Avid at Jefferson and plenty of other schools too across the country.
Great, thank you.
And I was just going to add that even though we just did an implementation stage this year, we still use the CCI, which is the coaching and certification instrument, to score ourselves to see how we were doing on the rubric. How are we training our staff throughout the year? Will we be providing services? How are we communicating our school-wide support, school-wide goals, school-wide expectations? And also, Joe and Jessica did a lot of aligning, and the team as well, aligning the school-wide mission, vision, and goals. And so we've completed a rubric. It's like a grade on how we did this year, even though we just did an implementation stage. So as we continue to go through Avid, we'll continue to complete all of the components, and then someone will look at that and they'll give us feedback and they'll work with us on next steps.
Thank you.
I will just add to that too, sorry, I apologize, that I really appreciate that Avid does that and comes alongside us. As a new site coordinator this year, I really have used our Avid person a lot to be like, can you look at this for me and give me feedback? And a lot of times I don't think we get that. We have like a one-off training, and then we're kind of left to figure it out on our own. And so I really appreciate that Avid is constantly coming back and making sure that we're doing it with fidelity, because their name is behind it too, right? So they want to make sure we're doing it well. And I really appreciate that we're getting that feedback and we're getting to see other schools, and there's somebody walking alongside of us and we're not left in it alone.
Great. Sounds like an excellent opportunity. Thank you for bringing it to us.
If I could just say that at a couple of the National Association of School Board meetings that I've attended, I've been exposed to this. It has a specific focus to it, but when you find out what other schools have been able to do with it, the ones I learned about were in Mississippi and Texas, and it was amazing the level of growth in the schools that occurred through this. International Baccalaureate is another kind of separate focus like this. Even the AP coursework at secondary levels has kind of an approach, but this I think has a focus that's very adaptable to Urbana's situation, so I look forward to it. But Peggy, in response to your questions, some of these other schools of what we've listened to tonight is just the beginning of what is possible or what has been possible in some of these other schools that I've seen. So it's seen that have been presented at a conference. They've been presenters at conferences. And it's astounding if we can carry this off to the level of expertise that has been shown in what I learned with Mississippi and Texas, and I'm sure it's elsewhere, is been very good.
Well, I, for one, I'm really pleased to hear you say that you wanted to bring in the teachers from the 5th grade as well as teachers from UHS, because I know we've been talking for years at our district about how, if you wait until 9th grade to try and capture some of these kids and get them thinking that they are college bound, it's too late. And so it's wonderful to hear that we're starting so much earlier and we're giving these kids the tools that they need to feel like they're potential college grads, because as you said, with especially kids whose own family members probably have never had a college experience, that is a daunting one for anybody at any age. So I appreciate that. And I hope that, I'm really excited by this program. I'm hoping that you'll come back regularly and give us status updates and collect data. I know how much you like to collect data, but this is one of those things that I would love to see how the successes that we have with this program feed into our school report card with the state, and how we're, closing the achievement gap and getting our numbers of graduates higher in the long run. So all these things bring out wonderful results, even if we have to wait many years to see them come to fruition. And also, thank you for including the dual language program. That was my first question before you guys started talking, and I'm glad you answered it. So just wonderful all around. If there are other board members who have anything to say, sorry, I didn't mean to step in on anyone, but thank you so much for the presentation.
I do have a question. For as transient as we are as a Twin Cities, and or a new student coming to Illinois, coming to Urbana schools, mid-year, and they are coming from a school that has AVID and they are in the program, how flexible will we be able to be to get them moved in to kind of where they belong in this?
Yeah, I think it's something that would be pretty flexible and pretty adaptable, right? We would have to make sure that our class sizes are appropriate and those sorts of things. But for the most part, I don't foresee any major concerns around easily having students roll kind of right back into the elective if they're coming from a school where they were in the elective already. It just makes a lot of sense. We would go through the process because there is, for the elective, there's a formal, as earlier explained, the application process, the interview process. We would still need to do that to make sure, right, we go through that process. But I don't foresee any reason why we couldn't at all.
Okay, that sounds really great.
Especially like you mentioned, between Champaign, Urbana, Danville is also a district that has implemented AVID as well. And so
Okay.
At least amongst Danville and Champaign, we would have a lot of that reciprocity, so to speak.
Sure. Okay, that sounds great, Joe.
Thank you. I briefly mentioned this earlier and then I'll stop because I can talk forever. Jennifer sending me I'm just kidding, side text to stop talking. But I think what I mentioned earlier about how UMS has had a large focus the last several years on restorative practices, behavior, with all of that was important and needed, and it's still needed. But I think we've made huge progress in those areas in 3 years. And now is the time to really add in the academic side of expectations, rigor, and support. Not that that wasn't ever there historically, but this is a new way to us kind of to reframe and re-envision the way we're providing more of the push to get students on that pathway. And as John mentioned earlier, you know, with my experience as interim principal at UHS, I know that by 9th grade, it's really hard to adjust and allow for that fluidity for students who haven't historically been in more rigorous courses. To start an AP as freshmen is a big jump for a lot of students. So trying to get them on that path earlier in middle school, in 6th grade, 5th grade, is exactly what we're hoping for, to see long-term the success from that. So thank you for that.
Well, if there are no other board questions, thank you, all of you, Ms. Smith and Ms. Shad and Dr. Wiemelt. This is a great way to end up the majority of our reports tonight. I'm so happy to hear good news every time you bring it to us. So thank you again for all of your hard work, and we look forward to hearing more from you guys.
Thanks, you guys. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, that's our only study topic for this evening. So 11.0 is a call for future special or executive meetings, which right at this point we do not have. So then we'll move on to our superintendent's report.
And I know the time is short, so I'm going to go really fast, but I've got good news to share, so I don't want to skip it. So we're going to do it. So I need to share our, let me get rid of that. So Carol can chime in on this, but Carol, why don't you do this slide? So this is a good news slide.
Yes, as part of our bond issue, we always have to go through a rating call with S&P, and we did that over the last couple of weeks, and I'm really happy to say that they did maintain our AA- rating. I was really concerned because the delayed property tax distributions were a big concern of S&P. Spent a lot of time discussing with them the problems it's caused and how it's reflected in our financials over the last couple of years. So this is good news, but they said if this continues to happen, they're going to keep looking and will potentially downgrade us. So we need to, not something we have any control over, but I'm hoping that doesn't happen. So anyway, that just good news for our bonds and moving forward.
Thank you, Carol. And graduation. So we've been talking a lot. I've been meeting with the UHS admin team, and we are moving forward with an in-person graduation. We're going to do that at McKinley Field. I talked to Julie Pride earlier today and kind of walked through our plan and how we're going to socially distance people. Ticket information will be coming soon. Right now, the capacity limits, as we've talked a lot about, right? Like, but if we're masked and we're outside, we're looking forward to being able to offer something in person. Now, students won't be able to bring 10 people with them, but we will at least be able to provide 2 tickets for each student, and we're going to look at what else we can do space-wise. We do have a rain date of June 1st. So I just wanted to say that out loud because that is our regular board study session meeting night. We are going to make a call at least by Thursday because there's intensive setup involved with this, especially since we have to have a bigger stage, more seating to spread everybody out. So setup is going to be a big undertaking. So we will decide by Thursday, the 27th, if we are going to be a go for Saturday based on the weather. If we make the decision not to move forward because of maybe storms or things like that predicted, we will notice that early enough where we can move our board meeting if we need to the following week. It's not like we could just set up on a Monday and say, okay, we're going to have graduation Monday at 6. So it'll take a day for us to set everything up and get all the sound, mics, just there's a lot involved in this process. So our rain date would be June 1st, but we are hoping for good weather. So everybody, like, do whatever you can to send up the goodwill for May 29th. So we're really happy about that. And another happy moment is we're also planning an in-person honors night. So honors night will be Wednesday, May 19th at 7 o'clock. We'll be sharing more information about that as well for graduating seniors for honors night. And last but not least, this is a fun thing. We've seen a little bit of a drop in our families coming to get our meals on Wednesday. So we're starting this promotion. Actually, it was Arbor is starting a fun promotion for the next 2 Wednesdays, not this Wednesday, starting April 14th, something called the Golden Ticket. So there are going to be golden tickets in some of the lunch bags spread out across all of our sites. Students and families can win Amazon gift cards, movie coupons, store cards, and many more prizes. So starting next Wednesday, the 14th and Wednesday, the 21st, if you have the golden ticket in your lunch bag, you just need to bring it back to the school the next week to collect your prize. And we'll be messaging that for fun and try to get more families involved in that. And I know we've spent, I'm not going to read this. This is directly from my superintendent report on Friday. But you guys have been hearing a lot about the American Rescue Plan, elementary and secondary schools emergency relief funding that we received. We just were notified last Wednesday or Thursday that we'll be receiving $15 million. And we have already started prioritizing plans and really thinking about some of the early, Peggy mentioned the learning profile, resource profile that ISB has put out. So they are giving us some very specific parameters that we have to follow and how we spend that money. So 20% of that ARP ESSER money has to be spent to close the achievement gap. So we're already looking at ways that we can do that through curriculum efforts, through our assessments efforts, through programming. That very first bullet is the one that we talked a lot about: summer enrichment, extended day, after school programs, basically at every single school for the next 3 years. So there's a lot to plan, but I did just want to put out there. We also are looking at technology upgrades, HVAC for every single building. So there, you know, $15 million sounds like a lot of money, but it will go really quickly as we start looking at full curriculum adoptions and bringing in a completely new math program or a completely new assessment framework and things like that. So those are all things that a lot of work it will be involved. And I know it is going to feel probably very overwhelming for staff for the next 2 or 3 years. But we've not had the opportunity to have this kind of funding to be able to bring new curriculum and new initiatives and new innovative practices in quite some time. So we're really excited about it. Again, it comes with a lot of requirements and parameters, but we are going to do our very best to be fiscally responsible and make sure that we're providing a well-rounded, equitable opportunity for all of our kids using this funding. So that is it.
Thank you. All good news.
Good news, yes.
And with that, we have board reports. Do we have any board members who have a report they'd like to give tonight?
Just want to congratulate Coach Zimmerman of the boys swim team for getting News Gazette Coach of the Year. That's a incredible achievement for our team and for a great coach.
Thanks, Paul. I saw that on Facebook today, and she coached both of, well, at least one of my kids, and one of yours too, right? Or 2 of your kids. And she was phenomenal when we brought her on board. I'm so glad she's still with us. She's done great things with our kiddos. Any other board reports for tonight? Okay, seeing none, I need a motion for us to go into closed session. We'll be having a 5-minute recess in between the open session and the closed session, if people don't mind. But I need a motion for that to happen first. And this is, let me read this again. We need to go into closed session tonight bear with me, for the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including